Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 725, Where Thou Art, That Is Home. Now, this one was published in the Atlantic Monthly for the first time in March of 1929. The thou of this poem, some believe is Sam Boyle's, some argue maybe another individual, maybe Wadsworth. We are, I think, for sure back to poem 498. You guys will remember this one. I envy seas whereon he rides. I envy spokes of wheels of chariots that him convey. I envy crooked hills that gaze upon his journey. How easy all can see what is forbidden utterly is heaven unto me. I envy nests of sparrows that dot his distant eaves. The wealthy fly upon his pane, the happy, happy leaves, that just abroad his window have summer's leave to play. The earrings of Pizarro could not obtain from me. I envy light that wakes him and wells that boldly ring to tell him his noon abroad, myself be noon to him. Yet interdict my blossom and abrogate my bee, lest noon in everlasting night drop Gabriel in me. You'll remember when we did 710, a similar sentiment. The sunrise runs for both. The east her purple troth keeps with the hill. The noon unwinds her blue till one breath of cover two remotest still. Nor does the night forget a lamp for each to set. Wicks wide away the north her blazing side erects an iodine till both can see. The midnight's dusky arms clasp hemispheres and homes, and so upon our bosom one and one upon her hem doth lie. Now, our assumption is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily is our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 724 poems we just finished with 724. It's easy to invent a life. Now, we have called these kinds of poems, Emily's longing poems. In other words, deep desire for something, and in this case, obviously, to be with someone that she misses. Now, I think that Emily is here dancing with Midsummer Night's Dream, okay? Now, we know that Emily loved her Shakespeare. Midsummer Night's Dream, of course, one of her favorites. And Act 2, Scene 1, you'll remember, that exchange between Demetrius and Helena. Demetrius will say to her, as they're alone in the woods, we've given full lectures at learnstrong.net on this play, do I entice you? Do I speak you fair? Or rather, do I not in plainest truth tell you I do not, nor I cannot love you? To which you'll remember in some of the most famous lines that Shakespeare ever wrote, Helena responds, and even for that do I love you the more. I am your spaniel, and Demetrius, the more you beat me, the more I will fawn on you. Use me but as your spaniel. Spurn me, strike me, neglect me, lose me, only give me leave, unworthy as I am, to follow you. What worser place can I beg in your love, and yet a place of high respect with me, than to be used as you use your dog? To which Demetrius incredulously says, tempt not too much the hatred of my spirit, for I am sick when I do look on thee. To which Helena responds, and I am sick when I look not on you. Now, there is a debate, and I'm going to leave it to you guys, to decide the tone of this poem. Is it serious or is it comic? In fact, is Emily maybe playing? Let's enjoy the poem. Where thou art, that is home. Kashmir or Calvary, the same degree or shame. I scarce esteem location's name as I may come. What thou dost is delight, bondage as play, be sweet, imprisonment, content, and sentence, sacrament, just we two meet. Where thou art not is woe, though bands of spices row. What thou dost not, despair, though Gabriel praise me, sir. Now again, the use of the word sir at the end of the poem suggests she's writing to a male, and clearly she's saying, I want to be with you. By the way, notice the structure. The first 5 lines, where thou art. The next 5 lines, what thou dost. And then the last 2 lines, were not and dost not. The balance of this poem is perfectly constructed. Now again, the thou of the poem is the question, who is the sir of the poem? Many scholars think it is Sam Boyle's. Notice she'll say, where thou art, that is home. She uses home in 77 of her poems. In other words, there's a belief, a comfort, if only I can be with you. Then she uses the word Kashmir, takes us back to our study of poem 64. You'll remember, spring makes the world Kashmir. She'll juxtapose Cashmere, as in luxuriousness, to Calvary, obviously suffering. For her, she says it's the same. Degree, that is to say some quality, or shame. You'll remember this from our study of 444. She says, I scarce esteem location's name. In other words, it doesn't matter as long as I'm with you, so I may come. You'll remember that we made something of this use of the word come when we did our series on Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, and we pointed out that the very first word of the deathbed edition of 1892, Whitman's Leaves of Grass, is this word come, the invitation in some way. In other words, she says, I'm just waiting for you to tell me when I can be with you. What, now to the second phrasing, what thou dost is delight. Bondage as play. Now, bondage here will take us back to our study of 366. You guys will remember when we played this game. Although I put away his life, an ornament too grand for forehead low as mine to wear, this might have been the hand that sowed the flower he preferred, or smoothed the homely pane, or pushed the pebble from his path, or played his chosen tune on lute the least, the latest, but just his ear could know that whatsoever delighted it, I never would let go. The foot to bear his errand, a little boot I know, would leap abroad like antelope, with just the grit to do his weariest commandment, a sweeter to obey than hide and seek, or skip to flutes, or all day chase the bee. Your servant, sir, will weary. The surgeon will not come. The world will have its own to do. The dust will vex your fame. The cold will force your tightest door some February day. But say, my apron bring the sticks to make your cottage gay, that I may take the promise to paradise with me, to teach the angels avarice. You, sir, taught first to me. This idea of bondage we'll come back to when we do 1594. And this idea of Emily's is an interesting one sometimes pain is propedeutic, it's useful. Immured in heaven, what a cell. Let every bondage be, thou sweetest of the universe, like that which ravished thee. And again, I find it interesting that she uses bondage in the word play in the same sentence. Now, we already commented that she's used play in 70 poems. We'll see it again, actually, a couple of poems later in 728. Let us play yesterday. You'll remember play from a number of earlier poems as well. When we did 244, for example, you will remember that we were messing around with play. Of course, 369, 467 as well. She died at play, you'll remember, of poems 75. 244, it's easy to work when the soul is at play, she says. And I think that's the point. In other words, it would be play if I'm with you, and even if it's perceived as bondage. And then she uses the word sweet, which of course takes us to remembering that we will have in 113 poems her use of the word sweet. By the way, back to this cashmere thing. After Sam Boyles died in 1878, Emily actually wrote a letter, it's letter 726, to Sam's wife. And he called their daughter, Boyles' Cashmere Confederate. So her use of the word cashmere as juxtaposed to Calvary. And then she'll say it. Imprisonment for her would be content, and sentence sacrament. Notice the use of the religious language. Just, I think that may be the key word of the poem. We, notice capitalized, to meet. Where thou art not is woe. Think about our study of Paradise Lost, of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste brought death into the world, and what all are woe. So Emily is definitely playing heavy language here with the theological or the religious literature language. Though bands of spices row. In other words, if I'm not with you, it doesn't matter even if I have tremendous gifts. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh come to mind here, right? What thou dost not is despair, she says, though Gabriel, used in 7 of her poems, by the way, the angel Gabriel, praise me, sir. Now this is interesting, because it seems to suggest that maybe Emily knows that there is reason for her to be praised, so maybe she is speaking with Sam Boyles. And then, of course, to finish with the word sir again, is it Sam, is it Wadsworth? The debates go on. At 2A, what are we going to say for a message here? I think that it's hard to not be with the one that you love and to be somehow separated. At 2B, I love the tight organization here. I love the tone. Is it comic or is it serious? I'm more inclined to think Emily's playing here and not serious, but I'll let you guys decide. At 3A, well, obviously all of the other longing poems, and I mentioned Midsummer Night's Dream. I think that passage of Helen and Demetrius is standing behind some of this. I think she's having a bit of fun there. Finally, at 3B, do you have someone in your life that you do long to be with? And for you, even if you're in pain, prison, it would be okay as long as you're with them. Thank you.